What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today we're into the international break. It's the last one for a little while now. We're about to come into a big fixture pile up over Christmas, so I wanted to take a look at game weeks 13 to 16, so the next 4-week block, to see what 4 teams are looking good, discuss the players that we might want to bring in, but also some that, even though they've got good fixtures, we may also want to avoid. So because it's the international break, we can do things a little bit different this week and then move back onto the normal content next week. Before we jump into this video, I did just want to say it's been kindly sponsored by OneFootball. If you've not already tried it out, it's a completely free football app. You can check it out on Android or iOS, search in the stores for OneFootball, or click the link in the description below. That will take you to it as well. Loads of football news and live scores and stuff, so if you're out and about on the weekend, it'll show you exactly who scored and hopefully get you some FPL points to go along with it. So if you've not already checked it out, completely free, search OneFootball in the app stores, or just click the link in the description below. Let's jump into this one. So we'll start off with Liverpool, and obviously you do not need me to sit here and tell you how good they are. Top of the league, beating Man City by 9 points. Not necessarily a comfortable win over Man City, but extremely good performance. Maybe a little bit of luck went their way. We won't get into that discussion in this video. But either way, they're riding high and they've got some really good fixtures to come. So the next 4, Palace away, Brighton at home, Everton at home and Bournemouth away. So really nice fixtures, potentially lots of good captain options as well over the course of those weeks. I know the likes of Jamie Vardy's doing well. Obviously Sterling, De Bruyne might be good against Chelsea as well. But ultimately, you could almost set and forget your captain. That's how good Liverpool's fixtures are. So one of the key questions is going to be, not should we get Liverpool players, but obviously should we triple up, because they've got a blank game week to come as well. And if we do triple up, do we go for double defence or double attack? Obviously, a lot of us have got either Mane or Salah right now, but we could go for both of them as it goes. But yeah, we do have to consider the blank in game week 18. It's still a good few game weeks away, so my kind of thinking is we get the points now and try and save 2 transfers going into game week 18, so we can maybe get rid of a couple of Liverpool players or bench them and use our bench players that we may not usually play, but with so many cheap defenders, it could be a good way to go. So I'm kind of leaning towards the double up in attack now. There is rumours and stuff that Salah's going to miss out with the Egypt game over the international break. Now, that's pretty much been confirmed at this point, but I'm kind of under the impression this is going to be another international break injury. Apparently got a knock in the Man City game, but he's had this ankle injury a little while. And he seemed to play a good few minutes over the last few games. So I'm confident he's going to continue to play. But obviously, we'll have to wait until Klopp gives a bit more news closer to the game week. Obviously, if there's any kind of like hints that he's going to be out or the ankle's still playing him up, then the double up would be a little bit worrying there, of course. And that, you know, at that point, Mane looks like the one to go for. The other reason why I'm kind of edging towards double attacks is because there's loads of good cheap defenders at the moment. Like, I don't own him, but everyone's got Lundstrom. There's Soyuncu at Leicester, Tomori at Chelsea. Rico, a lot of people have got in because he's playing. He was very cheap when people picked him up. So there's a lot of cheap defenders. And while I think Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold do really well over the coming game weeks because they've been getting attacking returns already, and once they get the clean sheets as well, they should absolutely mop up. There's just so many cheap defenders. I'm wondering if we should bother fitting them in, because it's basically going to give us massive benching headaches every week. So having Salah and Mane, you just play them every week, captain one of them. You have to make the choice of which one that is. Probably Mane, given that he's not got these ankle concerns. But in terms of home performances so far this season, Salah's actually got one more attacking contribution, which is quite interesting. A lot of these games are at home. So if you're choosing between Robertson and Trent, it's still really close. Robertson's got more points and he's a little bit cheaper. But Trent has created more than double the amount of chances this season so far. Obviously, a lot of that comes from set pieces. But even if you look at expected assists, it's 4.13 to Trent versus 2.13 for Robertson. So probably slightly higher possibility of attacking runs for Trent, but they're both going to get attacking returns as it goes. Like I said, Salah's got one more attacking contribution than Mane at home, so it's pretty close there. I think if I was just picking one defender, I'd probably still side with Trent, but it's really not that much in it. And if I had to pick one attacker, I probably would switch to Mane, but I do like the double up. One of the other key questions people are looking at, should you sell Man City players? So Chelsea at home, I think, is probably quite a good fixture, although Chelsea's defensive stats are quite good and Kante's back. So I'm not sure if Man City are going to smash them, but it is at home, and Liverpool playing Crystal Palace away, which can be tricky. Crystal Palace, organised team under Hodgson, and sometimes hard to break down. So it's a tricky one to know which one's the better fixture. I suppose City at home, most people will probably side towards that one. So whether or not you should sell the City player this week, I'm not sure. But after this week, Liverpool's run is so good. They got Watford after Bournemouth as well. There's a lot of captain choices. So that's why I'm looking at maybe shipping my Man City players to Liverpool ones. Now, what a lot of people will say is, well, you're not going to be scared without Man City players. And of course, I'd be worried about Sterling. But at the same time, I don't own Mane either, so I'm also afraid of the amount of points he might get with these fixtures. So I'm trying to play without fear. Yes, having Sterling would be a little bit of a worry, but so is Mane. And if you haven't got the money or the team structure to have both, then you've got to make a decision. And so far, I would probably side with Liverpool's fixtures. So really good fixtures. Got to have at least 2, maybe even 3. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Leicester up next, a very popular team and for good reason, sitting second in the league as it stands. A lot of people saying that this team is even better than the team that won the league, so who knows how far they can go this season. Obviously going to be tricky to catch Liverpool, but you never know. Stranger things have happened, like Leicester winning the league pretty much. Brighton away, Everton at home, Watford at home, Villa away up next. So really good fixtures, and of course I've just talked about captaining Liverpool players, but Vardy is an exceptional captain as well. He's done so well recently, another 12 points at the weekend, that these are fixtures that you could captain him in. And you know, when he plays Watford at home, I think Liverpool play Everton at home, so maybe even he's the better option there. So huge value this season, middle of the road for kind of shots in the box, but expected goals is pushing up there as the season goes on, so they're doing pretty well overall. And obviously we've seen all the talk about them being stats busters, especially Vardy. So he has been pretty clinical. At some point the variance might kick in, and you know, that amount of goals for kind of shots on target and stuff might go down. But with these fixtures, I'm not convinced that this is the time it's going to happen. So most of us have probably already got at least one player from Leicester, probably 2, maybe even triple up. But if you haven't, let's talk about the options you could go for. They're really good right up until game week 18. At that point, they do play Man City away and Liverpool at home, but that's over Christmas. And Christmas is a bit of a tricky period because obviously a lot of players play twice. And when you got nailed on players like Maddison, Vardy, Soyuncu and stuff, it's not that bad to keep them for those more trickier games necessarily. And obviously, if you do want to get rid of them at that point, then it's well down the line. And you can use transfers to do that. But obviously, the fact they're nailed on is a pretty big win. Now, defence is an interesting position. I'm still not hugely convinced about paying the extra money for Chilwell and Pereira. Now, I've already spoken about the cheap defenders that we've got on offer when I was talking about Liverpool. And there's no doubts that Chilwell and Pereira probably will get attacking returns. But when you look at their attacking stats, they're not amazing versus other defenders. So in the last 6 matches, Chilwell's created 10 chances. That's the same as kind of Ashley Young, Rico Digne and Trent Alexander-Arnold that he's just behind. And Pereira's only created 7, which is behind Emerson, Willems, Stevens and Bertrand. So they're not exactly smashing it out of the water. So they're doing fine. I just think because of their price, you maybe want to look at Soyuncu instead. Now, obviously, if you got on early, it's even easier to hold him. If you're getting on a bit later now, his price is rising, so he's getting closer to these two, but he's still like a good 0.5 to 1 million cheaper. So I still think personally he's the best option. He's the one I own. Should have had an assist in the last game from getting dragged down in the box. Had a goal recently as well. So maybe a little bit of attacking potential there, but the fullbacks are obviously got more of that attacking potential. I'm just not sure it's worth the premium price that you pay for that. In midfield, I think Maddison and Tielemans are obviously the standouts. You've got Barnes and Perez as well, who are playing on the wings. They're kind of playing 4-1-4-1. So they do cut inside. They get a good few chances created, shots, penalty area touches and that kind of thing. But they do obviously get subbed off quite a bit early. And if there is going to be a change, maybe Damari Gray plays at some point, it's going to be one of those two. It's not going to be Maddison or Tielemans, probably at least, that miss out. So the fact that Maddison and Tielemans are nailed on pretty much makes them worth the money. I think one of the key things I've learned so far this season is I've gone for too many short-term picks. And when you've got a team like Leicester doing really well, got good fixtures, get the guys that are nailed on and are going to play every week. If you can't afford it, then sure, look at Perez and Barnes. But if you've got the money to spend, they're worth the money. 7.5 for Maddison. I think it's 6.6 for Tielemans as well. Between those two, it's very close. Tielemans tends to have the odd shot here or there more than Maddison in the box. But Maddison does create a hell of a lot of chances because we've got all the set pieces as well. So it's pretty close between them. I don't think there's actually too much in it. And given the price, you might want to go for Tielemans. But if I was going to buy one right now and I had the money, I think I'd go for Maddison. And Vardy, I'm not even going to talk about him for too long because you all know how good he is. Nailed, in form, got penalties. I'm going to play pretty much 90 minutes every single game. What's not to like? He's even captainable for a lot of these fixtures. Next up is Wolves. Everyone's favourites last year. Had loads of cheap options. They're a bit more expensive this year. They're not doing too badly in the league. I saw a tweet from a journalist that covers Wolves. And they've basically got exactly the same amount of points this year as they had last year. And we know how good they went on to be last year as well. So it could be a good time to pick them up. Bournemouth away. I put it down as orange for them, although I've got it as green for other teams. I think it can be tricky. Bournemouth haven't been letting in too many goals recently, but I'd be pretty happy with having an attacker in this game. But Bournemouth away, Sheffield United at home, West Ham at home, Brighton away, decent enough fixtures. And obviously Jimenez has come into quite a bit of form. He's done really well over the last kind of 4 or 5 game weeks. I think from a defensive point of view, and paying 6 million for Doherty, I don't necessarily see them getting hammered. I think they're a good, really good team, solid team. They're going to play these fixtures, maybe concede 1, maybe 2 at the most, and potentially pick up the odd clean sheet here or there. But the fact that Bolly is injured does make me worry about their defence a little bit. But Doherty, if you wanted to take a massive punt, his expected games over the last 6, or expected goals, over the last 6 matches, is only behind Lundstrom. The only problem with him is, obviously, last year we kind of got him for 4.4, 4.5 million. He's now 6 million. It's a lot to spend when you've got Liverpool defenders, only kind of 1 million more, and all those cheap defenders that I've already talked about. So you could get kind of maybe Johnny from the other side. But I do like Doherty's attacking potential. If you want to take a punt over a few game weeks, he'd be the one to go for. Looking at midfield, Traore's got the most points for Wolves, and he's playing in that kind of front 3 of a 3-4-3. It looks to be pretty nailed on. Now, there are rumours that he's maybe injured, but it's international break and this happens all the time. Let's wait and see when we get to the press conferences. Has played the last 7 matches, so is pretty nailed at this point. Obviously, they could change personnel up, they could change formation up, but it looks like they're doing pretty well with this 3-4-3. My only issue with him in those games that he's played, he's had 5 shots, 7 chances created, only 3 shots in the box. And to be honest, I'm not sure how many points I'm expecting from him. He's one of those players that I'm just not sure he's got an end product. He's obviously been playing better to play himself into the team and get that many starts. But for 5.2 million, I just feel like he's too expensive to have as an 8th attacker, and he's not good enough to have in a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 playing each week. I just wouldn't be confident enough with him, even with the fixtures. There's a lot of other midfield options that I like instead. So he's not one for me, but probably the best option from this Wolves team if you want someone. And then up front, obviously, you've got Jimenez and Jota. Jota's underlying stats are really good. Compared to Jimenez, they're quite even though Jota's had less minutes. The thing I like about Jimenez is he's nailed on. He's started every single game. No real injury concerns. He's on penalties as well. And like I said earlier in the video, I'm kind of looking for players that I'm happy to keep for a long period of time at the moment as I can, because the fixtures are coming thick and fast. Got a lot of game weeks to go. You want players that are going to play week in, week out. Now, that could be Jota. There's no reason why he might not. But he has missed out on a few games already this season through injury. But he is cheaper. 1 million less is nothing to be sniffed at. So, again, if you didn't have as much money to spend, you might want to go for Jota. But I think Jimenez has to be the one you look for. 7.3, still really good money when they got these fixtures to come. Arsenal. Frustrating, I would say, from an FPL point of view, because they have players that I want to buy. They're just not giving me a reason to, or haven't done so far this season. Maybe the fixtures could change my mind a little bit. Let's talk about them. Southampton at home, Norwich away, Brighton at home, West Ham away. It's a really decent set of 4 fixtures there. I know a lot of people who own Aubameyang are thinking of keeping him for these fixtures. And I do think it's a tricky call when the likes of Vardy and that are doing so well. Do you sell him before Southampton, Norwich, Brighton? That is a tricky call. I'm not sure if I'm going to have Arsenal players all season. Never say never, of course. Things change. Players come into form. You get fixture runs like this, etc., etc. Maybe at some point a new manager, although it sounds like Emery's being backed. But the rotation is kind of all over the place for a lot of their players. Now, Aubameyang started every single game, so I'm not too worried about him. But first in midfield, we had Pepe starting, and now he's not starting. Ozil was nowhere to be seen. He's started the last 2 matches. But with Emery, we know that he chops and changes quite a lot in certain positions. So Aubameyang hasn't started a game all season, but is pretty pricey. They've got the fixture. So if you had him, I would be super tempted to keep him. It looks like he's going to start. There's these rumours I've seen circulating on Twitter that he's kind of, some of the players he's maybe starting to fall out with a little bit, or they've had discussions over his association with Arsenal Fan TV, liking pictures and stuff on social media. How much to read into that, I don't know. But the fact he started every single game makes me not worry too much about him. So they obviously have the fixtures. So if you wanted an outside punt, I think Aubameyang's the one. Chambers is 4.4 million, which is pretty cheap. It's just how much do you trust that Arsenal defence? And I think the answer is probably not that much. And again, we've got all those cheap defenders I keep talking about who have got good fixtures at the same time as Chambers. So it makes it even harder to jump onto him. If you look at the expected goals conceded over the last 4 fixtures, it's 3.5, which isn't awful. It's the same as Man City, but it's not as good as other defences that we're invested in, like the likes of Chelsea, like the likes of Leicester as well, who've got defenders almost as cheap as Chambers. So Lacazette, like Aubameyang, he's back recently enough from injury. He hasn't played 90 minutes week in, week out. And again, he's just got that annoying price point where he's 9.3 million. You could take a punt for these fixtures, but as we've just talked about, Vardy's got really good fixtures. He's only 0.2 million more expensive. So for me, Arsenal are a team that I want to buy their players. What I really want to see is a manager come in that's going to play kind of the first 11 week in, week out, so we can be confident they're going to have a run in the team. Chambers has played a lot of games now, so for 4.4 million, like I said, he could be a good outside bet, but there's just so many other defenders I've got at the moment that I'm not looking at shipping. Lacazette is too close to Vardy's price, and Aubameyang for me is just too expensive. But if you own him, or if you had a structure, for instance, that included Aguero in your team, and maybe you wanted to get rid of him for Man City's slightly trickier upcoming fixtures, and maybe you think that Jesus is going to come in too often and play 90 minutes and just basically get in Aguero's way, then maybe you could just straight switch to Aubameyang and go for a different punt over the next few game weeks. So Arsenal have got a few options. I'm just not too worried right now about jumping on too many of them. So that is it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the teams and the players that I've talked about. Are there any players that you're thinking of bringing in? Any that I've mentioned that you're absolutely thinking, no way am I going there? And what about Arsenal? Is there any players we can take from that team as a bit of a punt with these good fixtures? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. Like I said, it's international break, so doing a couple of different kind of videos this week before we move into the kind of normal team selection, game preview and streams next week. I'll have a wildcard video in the next day or so as well up on the channel, so make sure to keep an eye out for that one as well. If you're new around here, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when all those videos are going live. And other than that, if you've not already tried out OneFootball, like I said, completely free football app. Download it, Android, iOS, search OneFootball on the stores, or click the link in the description below. No harm in trying it out, seeing what you're thinking, and going from there. Otherwise, I'll leave it there. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers all.